welcome to Fans Without Borders. I'm Brent.
And I'm Ray. This is not our main show, though.
It is not our main show. We're still Fans Without Borders. We're just on YouTube. I guess we have a YouTube border right now because we are doing a YouTube Q&A just for the YouTube audience. For those listening there, you know, we put it out on Twitter the other day. Hey, we're going to just do this just to mix it up, have a little fun with it, just to make it a little different after however many years we've been recording together at this point. And we got a handful of questions in, so we thought we'd tackle those.
We did get quite a few questions. So yeah, let's get right to it.
All right, we're going to start off with this one from Josh. He says, I've always been unclear if Superman's return in Zack Snyder's Justice League will be the same as it was in the theatrical version. Do you guys suspect it will be different or maybe the same but with additional scenes? What do you think?
Loaded question.
Yeah.
Short answer, Josh, is that it's going to be very different. Here's the thing. Like, from what we can tell, you know, from what we can observe, from seeing the theatrical version of Justice League and knowing what we know, and I don't just mean from the trailer for Zack Snyder's Justice League, but also from all the Vero posts and all the storyboards, it seems that the machination for how Superman comes back in the movie, that appears to be the same. That appears to be unchanged. The circumstances of what happens after he comes back to life appear to be very different. And when I say very different, I mean that sequence in the theatrical version has some of the most of the Zack Snyder footage that exists in the movie. And we know this because a lot of it does not have CGI all over Henry Cavill's face. Specifically the Heroes Park stuff.
Right.
But it has been significantly changed from what we know. One of the biggest changes is Mark McClure, he's a legacy casting. That's Jimmy Olsen from the Donner films. He was in the theatrical version of Justice League, he is the prison guard behind the counter signing Barry Allen in to see Henry. Mm-hmm. But we know, based on early trailers and other footage, that he's actually a cop at Heroes Park when Superman comes back to life.
Because that's the cop that Cyborg saves him and then turns around and says something like, you should probably move, right?
That's exactly what he says. And yes, absolutely. So we know that's going to be there. We also know that the circumstances, and we've seen this from the trailer for Zack Snyder's Justice League, the circumstances of how Lois finds out that he's alive are also very different. She is not brought to the park by Batman. She apparently sees him rising from a street corner. Like, she's on a street corner and sees him, like, floating. We see this in that trailer. And that appears to be the first time that she sees him alive again.
Right.
So we don't even know if Batman is going to be at Heroes Park when the other four encounter Superman. So I think that a lot of like I said, the way that they're bringing him back to life with the Mother Box regeneration, I think that's probably still going to be the same. But everything else around it is going to be very different. We're not going to get any of the, you know, you won't let me live, you won't let me die. And he's not going to say, Zack Snyder confirmed that he's not going to ask Batman, do you bleed? That's not going to happen. That is out.
That never bothered me as much as it bugged other people because you won't let me live, you won't let me die. I always thought, I mean, it's kind of true. Batman was trying to kill him, and now they're trying to bring him back to life. And then the do you bleed? It was just it's just Superman throwing shade at Batman over I mean, I get why it's not Snyder's line. He doesn't want it in there. Totally understand. It just never bothered me the way it bothered other people.
I tend to side with you on that, although I totally understand why. But sure. You know what it really is, Brent, is it's not just that it's not his line. It changes the tenor and tone of what the scene was intended to be.
Yeah,
and
sure.
and that's the bigger problem that I think.
But I guess I never saw that as the comical part of the scene. Like, people are like, "Oh, they're making a joke. Do you bleed? Why is Superman?" It's like, to me, that was never. I never got that impression from it. Now, a few minutes later, yeah, definitely bleeding. Okay, yes, yeah. I'm with you. I'm not going to put up any defensive about that. I totally understand that part can go. See you later, out the window, where he's sitting there like rocking on his leg like that Family Guy gif. That part can go. I totally get that. But I don't know, just the overall sentiment. But I agree with you that it's like the actual resurrection will probably be very similar. Maybe some extra shots thrown in, some different point of views, for example. But the Heroes Park stuff, I think, is really where we're going to see some real differences.
Absolutely. Good. For certain. All right, so this next question from our good buddy Clayton at Fanboy Clay. This is a good one. I like this. Is there any franchises you'd like to see get an animated series tie-in? And his examples are, Clone Wars and Lower Decks. Which franchise and what would the show be about? Also, Brent, how are you enjoying Marvel's Avengers? Brent, you answer that question first. How are you enjoying Marvel's Avengers?
I'm really enjoying it a lot. It's a lot of fun to play as these different characters. I'm not super far into the game. Like, I found out I got the game early because I bought it digitally. It's like, if you bought it digitally, you can get it a couple days earlier. Okay, great. And I started playing a couple days, but there are people I know with physical copies who've already finished the story mode, or at least the main campaign mode. And there's more stuff coming, but they're way farther than me. Like, my team right now is trying not to be too spoilerific, is basically Ms. Marvel, Hulk, and Iron Man. Like, that's basically my team right now. So I'm not that far into it, but playing as those characters is a lot of fun. And I gotten just a taste of a couple other characters, Scarlet Witch, Thor, Captain America. But the three I've really played with the most of those three, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Is it as much fun by myself as what the Spider-Man game was on the PS4? No, it's not. But I kind of never expected that to be the case. I love that Spider-Man game so much. But the fact that the story is compelling, I'm enjoying it. There's elements of the Marvel Comics universe in it, but they're doing things in a different way. Totally, it works really well. I haven't gotten to play any co-op since the beta. Travis Hines and I played some co-op during the beta. I haven't gotten to do any of that, but we've already talked about me with some of the guys from the Geekverse Ultimate Alliance network, trying to put together some PlayStation nights and hop on with the four of us and play. And when those happen, that's where this game I think is really going to shine. And I want to do the single player stuff, but the multiplayer stuff, that's where it's going to be a blast.
Cool. And this is for PS4.
Well, they have it on Xbox too, but to my knowledge, there's no cross-platform play.
Okay. Yeah,
but yeah, I have it on the PlayStation. Most of the people that I've talked to who have it, if they had the option, they got it on the PlayStation because Spider-Man is coming to the PlayStation only as a free DLC later, but that's PlayStation only.
Oh, you gotta love those console-specific DLCs.
Right.
But personally, my personal logic has always been third-person perspective games play better on the PlayStation because I think that the PlayStation controller is better suited for third-person. Xbox is really suited for first-person shooters. And I don't really like first-person shooters. First-person shooters in sports games are what the Xbox controller, in my opinion, are better suited for. Third-person action-adventure, especially sandbox games, the PlayStation controller, I feel, is better suited for those. And that's just that's been my personal rule for years.
Okay.
So if Grand Theft Auto and Assassin's Creed, especially, PlayStation. Play those in PlayStation. But if I ever did play, if I played Madden or NHL or any of that, Xbox. If I played any first-person shooters at all, if I ever decided to play Call of Duty, which I did play the first three, but I'm not big on multiplayer, Xbox. But anyway, so that's cool. As far as the animated series, okay, Clay, this is a tough question because all of my answers already have animated tie-ins, to be honest with you. I can't think of a franchise that, because I was about to say DCCW, but they've done animated before on DCCW.
They have, yeah.
I mean, I guess they don't do it consistently, I guess, but we know there is an animated Vixen, there is an animated Green Hornet, or not Green Hornet, Green Arrow.
The Ray.
The Ray and Constantine, even. They've animated him as well.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. This is a tough one. To think of a franchise that could use an animated tie-in that doesn't have one already, which wasn't necessarily a stipulation he answered. One that I can think of for sure that an animated tie-in would be awesome for if they haven't done it already. I don't know if they have or not. Would probably be Doctor Who. Doctor Who would probably be very effective with an animated tie-in, especially if you were looking to do that. And I think this may have even been talked about, some of the lost episodes from back in the Hartnell years, way back when, the first Doctor, some of those lost tapes, they could redo them that way if they wanted, if they haven't already. Because again, I don't really know if they have or not. But that would be a franchise I'd like to see get some animated tie-in treatment.
You know, we've got the animated What If coming up from the MCU, and I'm curious to know how that will go, because that'll be their first time. And while technically it's not part of the MCU universe, it is still part of Marvel's multiverse, and they're diving more into the multiverse. We know with like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, WandaVision's probably touching on it. Loki is about an entirely different Loki, so it's touching on it. I feel like that would be a good opportunity to do more, like if one of these properties, Loki, Wanda, Doctor Strange, if one of them features any kind of like jump through the multiverse segment where you see different interpretations of different characters, then maybe if one of those was like really appealing or really connected well with the audiences, that would be a good opportunity to, well, let's expand their world, do it in animation, so that one, it's a little cheaper to produce, two, it's less of a time commitment on the actor, because if it's a different version of a character we already have, well, that's just even more commitments on the actor. But other than that, like, this is hard for me because like I'm not a huge animation guy. I do enjoy it, but I'm not like over the moon in love with it. So this was a harder one for me. At this point, could I ask for more Star Wars? Specifically, we are getting it, like the Bad Batch show and stuff. But I mean, like, I see a lot of people who want the more of that time between episodes 3 and 4, especially with like, you know, the trio. But can we jump 1,000 years earlier before episode 1 and get some other Star Wars characters then? And maybe some of that High Republic stuff's going to do that. I honestly don't know. I haven't read that much about that. But it's like totally different, you know, before Darth Vader, before Palpatine, before Yoda even. Maybe go back however long you have to for before Yoda, and like just some other Star Wars stories. I think Star Wars lends itself to animation really well after watching Clone Wars and Rebels. So I'd go with that.
I will not turn down more animated Star Wars, especially in that style. I guess for me, I want the Rebels sequel. I do. Mm-hmm. Let's find Ezra.
Sure.
Let's find Ezra and bring Sabine back as well, because she was my favorite character on Rebels. So yeah, that's what I would like to see. So yeah, I will not turn any of that down. It's a great idea.
All right, from Batman Jurassic, will Colin Farrell's Penguin take over for Carmine Falcone and become the crime lord of Gotham in The Batman? I mean, honestly, with Penguin, the potential is always there. And like that's like the Penguin I tend to enjoy the most, is when he's less of like the supervillain and he's more of the crime lord. So, you know, throw in the Iceberg Lounge and make that his base of operations, and definitely move. Like if Falcone doesn't survive, or not necessarily as by being killed, but if he's taken down one way or the other by the end of this movie, power vacuum. Just slide Penguin in there to fill that. Yeah, I'd definitely be on board with that.
Absolutely. And I think just from the brief glimpses that we've seen in the first trailer, it does appear that his Penguin is, you know, like street level kind of at this point. Like, mm-hmm. I mean, he's in there in the muck. He's shootouts on the street, and like just he's in the thick of it. And it's definitely it's not Robin Lord Taylor. It's not Robin Lord Taylor at all. This has like crime boss, like nitty gritty written all over it. So yeah, absolutely. In fact, for all we know, he could be trying to instigate the power vacuum. Perhaps he is wanting to push out, you know, Falcone and Maroni. You know, if they're both around, like I could absolutely see that. And yeah, I'm with you. I do like seeing him as the mob boss as opposed to being the crazy, you know, Dozier-esque supervillain.
Right.
Like he's really not that kind of a character. He really is supposed to be kind of like, you know, and not even, you know, even in the animated series, he was a bit more fantastical.
He's a gangster.
Like, right, he's supposed to, you know, the gangsters in that show were like Rupert Thorne and, you know, those guys. He should be on that level. So yeah, I'm all for that. I'd like to see that happen for sure.
Good.
This next one from Chantel. Do you think we will see any of the big franchises, comics or shows, work in a pandemic storyline in the future, or is that too on the nose? The showrunner of Grey's Anatomy said that their next season would be about COVID, and I don't know if I could stomach a storyline like that. Well, here's the thing, Chantel. Grey's Anatomy is a hospital show. They kind of have to.
Yeah.
They kind of have to.
It's also a hospital show in a plausible reality scenario.
Right.
They can't just avoid it. Like, it's harder for, like, The Flash to do it because they have all this super science. Why don't they come up with a cure?
Exactly.
But a show like Grey's, yeah.
Grey's Anatomy, Chicago Med, like any current realistic medical drama, they're going to do it. They kind of have to do it.
In the case of Chicago Med, then if they do it there, it's going to touch on the other Chicago shows. So I would expect to see it in the reality type shows, but I would not really expect to see it in season 2 of Stargirl, for example.
Right.
In fact, I think the opposite is true. I think, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I've heard of shows that were reworking what they were doing because they were going to have some sort of pandemic type storyline, and they're moving away from that. And I definitely thought about that because I just started reading Deceased, and it kind of starts as like this ultra lightning fast pandemic, and I was like, oh, I'm reading this at a weird time, but so I would not expect to see that show up on. So, I mean, how are you going to do Supergirl and show how a pandemic is affecting her, right? Like, she doesn't care. It's not affecting her. So right. It doesn't work the same. Or Legends of Tomorrow. Okay, well, we'll just get in the Wave Rider and take off to another time.
Yeah, or go to the future and get the vaccine, right?
Yeah,
or something to that effect. Yeah, I think that the comic book worlds, those Earths are isolated because all the otherworldly stuff would render this thing useless. So yeah, I think you're right. I would not expect to see any of the shows adapted. If any of them did, probably Black Lightning.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That'd be the most likely.
And if they did, they would take a very socio-political response to it.
But if they did, that would now, unless they were able to somehow localize it specifically to Freeland, they'd have to touch on it on the other shows because they're all on the same Earth now. Or they'd have to somehow like quarantine Freeland off in a kind of like what they did the last season with the Greenlight related stuff. And then like that might just be too close on the nose to what they did last season. But I agree, Black Lightning is the most likely to do it.
And I don't think it'll be like, I don't think they'll make it a storyline. I think at most we'll see references. You know, like maybe somebody coughs and, you know, a comment is made, or maybe someone passed and they said it was because of, you know, whatever happened. Like, I think they may treat this as something that is that's something that happened off screen, where like, and something occurred that affected someone's life, like of a bit player or a minor character, and that was the reason, something to that effect. Or it's changed the mindset of, okay, this is happening because remember what happened here and we never saw it, but everybody knows what it is because we're dealing with it in real life. I think that's the most that these shows will go.
All right, next question from Jim Scroggs. Wants to know, for Brent, for me, what would be in a GL game designed by me, a Green Lantern game? Ray, were you able to get a pair of Michigan Pegasus 37? So, Ray, let's start with yours first. Did you get those Michigan Pegasuses?
Yeah, I did. I totally did, and they're awesome. I would... Okay, like, answer your question. I'll be right back.
Okay. All right, so to answer my question about what would be in a Green Lantern game, Jim, you had originally sent in a tweet that was like your perfect Green Lantern game. So I'm going to kind of merge these two together. I don't know game design. I don't know that. To me, what I'm about to say doesn't sound feasible. But what I would say is a game like Spider-Man with the open world, at least a comparable size, if not a little bit bigger for Green Lantern. Maybe it's Coast City, something like that. At least comparable size to the open worldness of Spider-Man flying around. But I would have that be the Earth-based stuff, but I would want to go to other planets. You know, I want to go to Mogo. I want to go to Oa. I want to go to Ran or Thanagar and see all these different planets. And so I would do kind of like Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order style, which I know there's other games that do this too, where eventually you go to like the ship or whatever and you just say, take me to planet 1, take me to planet 2. And then I would make those planets have open world components as well. Maybe not as large, maybe a little smaller, but I'd want to be able to fly around those planets as well. And so in a game designed by me, I would probably end up with I'd probably do the Hal Jordan origin story to Sinestro's fall from grace. So like, he gets the ring, he's flying around Earth, send him to Oa, he gets trained by Sinestro, send him back to Earth, I'd do some stuff on Earth, and then I'd have Sinestro call him to help back out in space, and then during that time, that's when Sinestro, Hal basically figures out Sinestro's real intentions, and from there, the final boss would probably actually be Sinestro. And that's probably what I would do. So just some sort of mixture that I'd want that open world concept, but I wouldn't just want it on Earth. I'd want to be able to, you're Green Lantern. I want to go to different planets. So I want to be able to, it's not feasible. I realize how big that game would be, but you asked, and I'm not a game designer, so I can go as big as I want.
Let's not say it's not feasible. They could,
well, it doesn't sound like it, because I just basically said I want like 4 different games the size of the Spider-Man game. So,
hey, Green Lantern is it's probably why there hasn't been like a massive Green Lantern, but open world Green Lantern game, yes. Yeah.
There was a movie tie-in game in the style of like Ultimate Alliance, where it's like you and Sinestro or whatever, and it was 2-player co-op, like. And you could run around playing, but it wasn't like open world, and it was pretty. It was fun to play with somebody else, but it was pretty limited. I want to be able to fly everywhere and pick up random people off the street in bubbles and make giant green boxing gloves and just punch cars. That's what I want to do.
I would have 2 demands.
Okay.
For downloadable content.
Okay. I
want Simon and Jessica.
Absolutely.
With their own storyline, and I want Joe.
Okay.
I want Joe as a playable character and have her own did you ever play Mass Effect?
Not really. No. Like I've seen parts of it, but I haven't played it.
I'm a fan of the Mass Effect franchise. The second game, Mass Effect 2, best in the series by far, and also has the best DLC. There's a couple of DLC storyline packs. There's Overlord, which is a crazy hard sci-fi messed up story that's really good, and then there's also Lair of the Shadow Broker, which is really good, where you actually bring in Liara, one of the characters from the first game that wasn't really in the second game, but these were like full storylines that you played out as downloadable content. I would want a full playable Far Sector storyline for downloadable content in this game.
That'd be a lot of fun. That'd be a lot of fun to do, and I would just create another world, another open environment, and yeah, sign me up. We may need more than one Green Lantern game at this point. Oh darn, we need multiple Green Lanterns. I don't like Green Lantern at all, as I'm wearing my Green Lantern DC fandom shirt. So,
yes,
sign me up for that. All right, go.
Just for Jim, just to show Jim, here they are. Here they are. Yes, I most certainly did get them. They shipped really fast because I didn't get them from Nike. I got them from the Emden, which is our local Michigan store. The main store is in Ann Arbor. The shipping plant is in Ann Arbor. Ann Arbor is an hour and a half south from me. So they actually got here a day early. They were supposed to... Actually, you know what? Hang on. They got here the day of Fandom.
Oh, nice.
We were in the middle of our panels and someone knocked on the door and I went and answered the door and they were here. So yes, I did get them, Jim. So yes, they're awesome. They're fantastic. They're the best Nikes I've ever owned. So cool. Go blue. All right. This next one from Jesse Jess. Will the Riddler be wearing his iconic green question mark suit in the Batman? From what we know, Jesse Jess, not at the beginning. And probably not for most of the movie. We have everything that it's been indicated to us from Matt Reeves is that all the villains are in proto mode. They're not fully formed yet. We already know that's the case with Colin Farrell's Penguin. And we know that's the case with Zoe Saldana's Catwoman. It certainly seems to be the case with Paul Dano's Riddler. If that's him with the duct tape at the beginning, he's not a green question mark suit yet. So,
and Reeves said it was like the origin story for the villains. And so I feel like the green question mark suit comes when the whole property moves towards the more fantastical side. Yes. So it would have to move away from the gritty. It's like, to compare it to television, they're still in Arrow season 1, and they need to get to like Arrow season 3 with what they're willing to go for fantastical before you can really pull off that green question mark suit.
How long did it take for Corey Michael Smith to get to his green suit in
I don't remember, to be honest, but it feels like it was a few seasons.
It was at least 2 seasons.
Yeah.
He did not have the green suit it was like season 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Might have even been 4. The Sofia Falcone season. That might have been the season where he got the green suit. If someone knows otherwise, go ahead and let us know. But yeah, it took a minute for him to get the green suit there. So yeah, I don't think we're going to see it in this one for sure.
From Super Santa, thoughts on the Robert Pattinson situation? What's next for the Batman with filming being delayed? We touched on that on the Fans Without Borders episode 169 that's coming out this same week. But, I mean, well, first off, you just hope that Robert Pattinson and the rest of the cast and crew are going to be okay.
Number one.
They're going to get over.
Number one.
That comes first. As for what it means for the Batman, honestly, I think it potentially means another delay of the film, depending on how long this lasts. If they're able to isolate him, and there's not too many others who have it, and pretty much a month from now, it's wiped back out off the set, and everybody's good again, and everybody's healthy again, I think they could maybe still hit their October date. If it becomes an issue where they have to have an extended shutdown of another couple months, then I think we're going to start looking at potential delays of the actual movie. Obviously, we don't want that to happen, but they need to do whatever's going to keep everybody making the movie for us safe.
Yeah. I'm in lockstep with pretty much all of that. We've heard, I think I saw some reports that the budget for this movie might even be sub 150.
I have not heard that, but it feels believable.
Yeah, this seems like it could be one of the least expensive modern-made Batman movies out there, which leads one to believe that there's not a ton of visual effects in post-production. I mean, if we're to believe other reports, everything that we saw in the trailer was completely practical. There was no VFX or major CGI that was in it. And if that holds true, then you could be looking at a scenario where there are a lot of things. I mean, it really does depend on how many people have it, how widespread is it outside of Pattinson, because otherwise, if it is just Pattinson and a couple of others, you can localize that and, isolate them, go off and do other stuff, and continue production with other, members and get other things shot.
Yeah, you can use the stuntmen and you can use scenes that Pattinson's not involved in.
Exactly, which potentially could happen. But no, you're right. If they do have another major couple months delay, then I think that probably has to push the October 1st date. I mean, we'll see. I mean, that date is still at this time, that date is still more than a year away.
Right.
And depending on what happens with other movie release dates, I think there definitely should and should be some wiggle room with release dates in general for any of these movies. But this is the risk of restarting things while we're still in the thick of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you just hope that Pattinson gets through that. I mean, he's not the only actor. Several actors, several DC actors have gotten it. I mean, Idris Elba had this. I think but they were fortunate that it didn't affect the Suicide Squad's filming because they wrapped before the pandemic really hit. But he's had it. I just read a thing, literally, Brent, that Michael Rooker is recovering from this.
Oh, really?
Yeah. This literally came through on my phone. It looks like he seems to be doing okay. But it's just it's a and of course, like we said, the Rock. Like we mentioned that on the Fans episode, he and his whole family have come down with it. So it's a concern. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely a concern for all of these productions. So delays would not surprise me for any of these films, depending on the situation. We just have to wait and see. You just hope for the health and safety of everyone involved, starting with Pattinson, and, go from there at that point. I think health and safety comes first, and then, if the movie release date gets moved, then so be it.
Absolutely.
So this last one from our good buddy Travis that we've mentioned earlier. Who is the more famous squad father? Tim, because Patty Jenkins follows him on Twitter and he has the most seniority, or Scott, who was part of a 40-minute discussion with Zack Snyder and legit got to ask him a question?
It's tough.
That is very tough. I mean, obviously, initially, my thoughts are Snyder or Scott, because he was in on that Real in Motion discussion, that 40-minute chat with Zack Snyder, and did get to talk to him directly. But a DC director, the Wonder Woman director, follows Tim
and has replied
him
to
on
like,
Twitter.
I has interacted with him before. I mean,
yes.
I realize that Snyder technically interacted with Travis. You've put us on the spot.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Who's the bigger director? Maybe that's how it comes down to. Who's the director your mom is most likely to have heard of, or random person on the street?
You just asked two different questions.
I did, but it's because I don't know how to measure it. I don't know how to measure this. Who's the more famous squad father?
My mom doesn't know either one of those directors.
I mean,
but well, no, I can't. No, she's seen. My mom has seen BVS, and she's seen Wonder Woman. So I don't know. It's tough. I'm not sure.
I think I have to give it to Scott. Ultimately, I don't quite know how, but that's what I got to come down on. I got to give it to Scott. So, at least in our podcast circles, I think I have to give it to Scott.
I think I am inclined to agree.
I don't think you knew what you were going to say till you said the last word.
Well, it just. I mean, we don't want to cause dissension.
Well, no, I would love to cause dissension. That's fine. But let me ask: does Patty Jenkins know Tim's name? She might. Does Snyder know Scott's name? Probably not. Sorry, Scott.
Actually, no.
Actually, he might. I mean, he might.
I think Patty does know Tim's name.
So maybe I don't know.
I think she does. I think she does know Tim's name. I can't necessarily reveal how I know that, but I think that I think she does know Tim's name.
Right.
But
and yes, I know, Scott, that Snyder has liked some of your Vero posts. That's not the same thing.
No, and see, that was where I was coming from on it. Is like she follows him. Like, I can't get a director to follow me to save my life. You know what I mean? Like, it would be awesome if I could get, like, McQuarrie or Snyder. He has a Twitter account, but he's not nearly as active on Twitter as he is on Vero.
Well, just keep begging for it. Someday somebody will follow you. But, I don't know. I'm still going to go with Scott, but I don't feel good about it, and I could be easily swayed the other way.
Okay, so then you know what?
Ridiculous, Travis.
This is a ridiculous question, but you know what? For the sake of keeping it even, then I will go with Tim. I will defend Tim because Patty Jenkins follows him, probably knows his actual name, and on top of that, I did feel bad for him. I mentioned this when we talked about this in our fandom episode. I did feel bad that Tim wasn't a part of that discussion in Real in Motion. I do wish Tim had been a part of that. It felt like he should have been with that group. That amazing moment that whole group, the Real in Motion guys, had, that Scott was totally a part of. And yes, Scott can totally dine out on that. I talked to Zack Snyder in a chat on Real in Motion podcast. Absolutely. Yes, for sure. So I think you can go either way with it, but if you're going to go with Scott, then I'm going to go with Tim.
All right. Well, let's leave it at that. Travis, you stink. Let's leave it at that. So, hey, let us know what you think of doing the YouTube only Q&A show. Like, do you want more of that? Let us know what you think. We're just kind of, as a network, looking at YouTube of other possibilities. We have some other things in mind that we're not ready to talk about yet, that as a network, the 6 of us are looking at possibly doing, and we'll just see. But for now, you say the best place to get a hold of us is on Twitter. I'm Brent Prime on Twitter.
And I'm the Flightcast on Twitter.
And then the show, if you want to tweet at the show, is at Borderless Fans. So thanks for watching. Let us know what you guys think. Let us know what else you would want to see from the network for YouTube.
All right. Take it easy, guys.